Welcome back to the show, everyone. Dana and I have taken a circuitous route to get to this point.
You guys never get to see just the random chatter that we do beforehand. And it's quite delightful because we cover a lot of topics and we're really good at distracting each other, right?
Very good at would you say distracting or like elaborating? Like
Oh, there you go.
it's like we're like synergistic,
There you go.
like
Yeah. We can
two
flow in and
variables
out. Yeah.
flowing together, resulting in something greater
There you go.
together
A good reframe.
than I
Good
mean,
reframe.
between us, like Dana did do a little reality checking for me this morning, which was very lovely,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
like that was helpful. And then, we touched upon, I don't know, 15 other topics before we were like, and then right before I hit record, Dana goes, "Wait, what are we talking about again?" That's that's
Good
pretty
thing we have them.
classic.
It's a good thing we have them all written down in a spreadsheet
Yeah.
that we get to go off of because it's a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
thing. But we have covered masking.
Yeah.
And we'll say neurodivergent masking here because
Mhm.
whenever we're not specific, what ends up coming up is like actual face masking for,
Yeah, right. Or COVID
medical
masking.
masking,
Yeah.
basically. But we're talking about neurodivergent masking
Yeah.
today, and more about not what it is, because I think we've covered that and we've had
Yeah.
that conversation a lot actually
Yeah.
on the show. But I think what happens or what can happen to people after they've masked forever.
Mhm.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like what feels like
Yep.
forever.
Yeah.
But the word for that we've discovered is invisibility.
Yeah. And you brought up a good point. I've talked about invisibility from my own experience before in terms of like, at work where I'll have this idea and I'll say blah 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 and we should do ABC. This is sort of a women's thing at work too. And then everybody kind of goes, oh yeah, okay. And then it's later someone else brings it forward like it's their idea and then everybody loves it. It's like, didn't I just say that? So there's that version of invisibility, and then the version that you brought up, which is when you mask for so long, and then I see this in working with complex trauma with folks too. When you have sort of taken on a role to blend in or to, you know, fit in with society, if it's autistic masking, and then you start to try to not mask. If that started really young and very early during your developmental period, you're like, well, who am I? Like it really is an identity crisis at that point. I went through that certainly without even knowing I was autistic in the most of my own therapy. I remember my therapist asking me, well, what is Dana like? And I was like, I could spout out some things and it was just things that I would do or did or, did with other people. I always ask people too, what would you be doing if you didn't have to impression manage the other person? Like if you're
Yeah.
alone and you could just decide what you're going to do. And that was always the best little tip for me because I could say, would I be going to this restaurant? Would I be watching this movie? I mean, knowing that we do interrelate with humans and you make concessions and you say, what do you want to watch and what do you want to watch? But that sense of a way to figure out what's really in there because we learned so young that the way we act naturally isn't okay, right? Or even the tone we have, just our normal tone of sort of matter of fact. I got for years, probably the first half of my 20 plus years of teaching, and students would tell me this all the time. They'd be like, "Oh, I was intimidated by you," and I'd be like, "I'm not sitting here, wanting to intimidate you." And they'd say, "No, you're just sort of really knowledgeable and matter of fact," and that to the feeler, the other person can feel intimidating. And I was like, I'm just straightforward. It's just sort of my tone, coupled with being from Chicago, and we're just straightforward. We don't sugarcoat stuff. The irony is I had to kind of learn to soften it a little bit, right? But I think that we get misunderstood a lot. And then if you're trying to unmask and then people are used to you being one way, like being accommodating and being people pleasing and things like that, and then you start to not do that, people are like, what's wrong, right? I was masking extroversion for most of my life up until about the age of 40. And then I did an Enneagram thing. It's like a personality thing you can do. We were doing it at
Mm-hmm.
work. And one of my coworkers said I was a closet introvert. And I was like, what do you mean? And she sort of told me about that. And it was that sort of thing, like what would I be doing if I wasn't worrying about what other people think? But also, I still remember the day I did this, which was to not try to insert yourself in conversation to be included. Just let yourself sit back, right? And it was a relief because it was a lot less energy. But for a while I got that response from people who were like, what's wrong with Dana? Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm just not jumping in and entering things into the conversation all the time. And that was really hard because I was like, is that really me? Is that me trying something else on? Is this really what I want to do? And so you really do have to kind of, in a way, it's a version of invisibility because who are you? You
Yeah.
don't know who you are. You're sort of a ghost to yourself. And then it's not just like what you like and, what your habits are and what your routines are, but like, who are you as a person? And when you start to let, I think, a little bit more of that autistic self out, and I can see that in some of my work relationships, um, people kind of getting jolted or having more kind of, I wouldn't say skirmishes, but people saying, what's the scoop? Me, oh, no, no, I didn't mean that way. That sense of having to explain myself more, right? Um, and then I think what can happen is you can have so many negative experiences from unmasking that you give up. And then there's that other part of the invisibility, which is just, I'm not going to try anymore. I'm just going to sit here and not say anything. And then you get kind of lost and not included. And it's really is that back and forth, a lot of trying that, practicing that, and figuring out which group you can do certain things. And you might say, isn't that another version of masking? No, you're learning like the reciprocity rules or energy of that group. But to me, I have found it continually difficult. I don't feel like I can 100%. When I'm talking to my neurodivergent students, it's no problem, right? When I'm talking to mostly the people I work with, my fellow faculty, who none of them are neurodivergent, it's clunky a lot, right?
Yeah.
Some people I can tell are mindful of the fact that I'm autistic and sort of give me some of that grace, which is great. But I could see other people getting really irritated. And I'm like, oh, that feels familiar. That sense of, even as a kid, my family saying things like diarrhea of the mouth. We've talked about that in here, right? Or just things that you like and want to do, right? Moving your body in certain ways, certain foods you want, and then people having input like, oh, you always eat the same thing every day, all the time. As a kid, you don't have choice in that, right? So it's a complex thing, this idea of invisibility and, who are you and how do you fit in a group and be seen, but not be irritating? Because frankly, that's what it feels like I am to a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes my clients will say things like, I feel like I'm too much
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm enough, right? That
Mm-hmm.
kind of conundrum of too much and not enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I think this invisibility piece is so interesting because, inevitably, Dana, you bring up what happens in unmasking, right? And we've
Yeah.
talked about that. Like unmasking is challenging in and of itself, right? Um, but I find that when you encourage people to unmask, even if it's like, where can you be unmasked? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
what environments, which people can you be unmasked around?
Right. Right.
Um, it's usually by themselves
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
in a controlled space of some
Mm-hmm.
kind,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Like at home,
Yep,
yeah.
in their
Yeah.
room, something like that. But it's when I ask questions like, what do you want?
Yeah.
What would make you
Yeah.
happy?
Mm-hmm.
how would you feel fulfilled?
Yeah.
It's these, and they're like, I have no idea.
No idea.
No
Yeah.
idea. I've not
Yeah.
had the luxury
Yeah.
of even
Yeah.
asking myself that question. And
Mhm.
why? Why ask myself that question when I can't even make that happen? Like, they'll say that to
Yeah.
me. Like,
Yeah.
that's not even
Yeah. Yeah.
accessible. Like, I wasn't supposed to be born. Like, I was born on the wrong planet. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not supposed to be here. I don't feel
Yeah.
like I even belong
And that is that
here.
invisibility, so that you learn to either pull back, or that you're not 100% belonging. So it is that sort of invisibility feeling. It's so sad, especially for people that um, uh, don't have the means, or they're at an age where they're still living with their parents and things like that, and they can't do any of those things. Yeah, in that regard, when I was first living by myself in my 20s, I think about, I did a lot of stuff alone, which was fine with me, but like things like doing triathlons and training for triathlons, all that was alone. I loved swimming, I loved biking for hours on end.
Mhm.
Those are all sort of solitary sports, and those are things that I loved, right? So, what are things that but the automaticity of, I think this is for me, and then the immediate and totally wrapped around thought is, how is this going to land? What are other people going to think? I'll literally even sometimes be picking out a sweater in the morning, and I'll be like, oh, that's the one I want to wear. And then I'll think, oh, immediately go to, what are other people going to think if I wear this sweater? And then, I've
Mm.
gotten to a point now in my life where I'm like, oh my God, if I can't just pick out a sweater, come on. And so I've given myself permission for that, but it's still so automatic, and it's always still there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I will say that, what I observe a lot of times is when we're working on unmasking,
Hmm.
just because the energy is so depleted, right?
Yeah.
Like this is where I see this, right? Where there's kind of chronic energy depletion.
Hmm.
And it's really coming from, I mean, we've also spoken about this on the show too, or explored
Mm.
this as social anxiety, right?
Yeah.
I don't wanna appear a certain way. I don't wanna be offensive.
Yeah.
I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want people to think
Hmm.
this way about me, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so they're very driven by those questions. And then they'll say to me, "Gwen, I don't even realize it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 At the time, you sort
I
of,
don't even
someone has a
realize it."
reaction, and then you're like, oh, what? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Uh, I've
which
shared on
is
here my favorite band,
yeah.
Mr. Wives, has that phrase that you said earlier, which is, today I'm too much, tomorrow I'm not enough.
Yeah.
It just says it all. That sense of, how do you jump in? This is when you're in school and they would say you're having a group project, and it was always like, oh crap.
No, you're
beyond
like, "Not a
beyond the
group
normal group
project."
project thing.
Yeah.
But if we were allowed to pick our own peeps, that was fine, because I'd get other people that kind of had similar energy. And even that, I mean, I think about it, like the year of my internship, there were like a core of 5 of us that were inseparable, and no one else was neurodivergent, but I think we just sort of got each other, and we had that rapport, and we had that, that back and forth, and it sort of worked. But especially when you're in new situations, or you just have someone who doesn't sort of come forth to meet you that way, right? Or when there is a limit that feels like it's crashed into, they're kind of mean about it. Like
Yeah.
my wife now, if I'm doing something silly in the house, most of the time thinks it's awesome. If she's working and I'm just distracting her because she works in the kitchen, she'll kind of give me one. She'll just keep on her keyboard, or she'll give me one of those looks like. And part of it is me reminding myself she's not judging me being weird. It's just that I'm distracting her. But that took a long time, right? Because she started working at home during COVID. And a lot of times I go to the, oh crap, I'm being weird and it's not okay, right?
Yeah.
But how do you express yourself? And then one day she had told me, I love when you go upstairs to get ready for bed at night when I go brush my teeth and that. She said, I can hear you always do like this humming, singing thing while you're doing that. I wasn't even aware of it. And I was like, oh, sorry. No, I think it's adorable. So you start to hear those kinds of things from someone that cares and loves you, and you start to get permission for that. But when you're younger, like the people that you work with, where the parents are just trying to fit you into that
Yeah.
socially acceptable place, that's really hard. So how do you give someone the freedom to be who they're going to be while they're still developing, so they don't end up, as a fully fledged adult, just having this total identity crisis of like invisibility, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is an identity crisis. I mean, I think like
Hmm.
identity crisis is a great it's because the crisis is from it really is the question, who am I?
Yeah. Who am
You
I? Yep.
know, who am
Yep.
I? We might even extend that to who am I in this world? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
in this place, right?
Yeah.
Um I also like I think what this also results in is loneliness. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
there's not
Yeah.
a connection to a group of people or other
Hmm.
people. They haven't found that connection yet. And it's just plainly not easy. I mean,
Yeah, or you're
when
too
my client
exhausted to do it. Like,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, it's very isolating
yeah.
to be isolated.
When
Yeah,
my
yeah.
clients say to me like I feel lonely. You
Mm,
know, it's
hmm.
like I don't even have a good idea for them about how to connect. I mean, apart from
Yeah.
like, connecting over interests, with other
Hmm.
people
Hmm.
that have similar interests. Um, but how do you
Yeah,
find those? It takes energy to find those
exactly.
groups, and to
Exactly.
find the group that works and to
Hmm.
then experiment with
Hmm.
groups. I mean, it just becomes too much. And so it just, they
Yeah, and
stay they stay
it's
isolated.
frustrating in a good, I want to sort of acknowledge and validate, it's frustrating for us as therapists too, not that we're frustrated with you at all. It's frustrating that we don't have a solution for that. We don't have an easy fix for that by saying, oh, do this one thing. And it is hard, and that's the reality of it out there, right? Other than to say maybe try some unconventional ways of connecting, online, or you do reach out to one friend who's equally as busy as you, and you just say, I know we're both super busy. Can we do just like a 45-minute coffee somewhere? So it's like you limit it so the other person's more likely to say, yeah, I'd love to catch up, or do a Zoom with them or something along those lines. It's hard,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because you're trying to figure out who you are in a world that's not built for you, and the primary coping mechanism is to be invisible, or you get treated as invisible, so you figure nothing I'm going to do is going to make a difference, right?
Yeah.
Or yeah, you work your arse off and people still don't acknowledge you. I mean, I see that more with women, and I see that more with neurodivergent people.
Yeah.
That sense of, it really is living in that white male patriarchy, and the less ticks you have on your box of those privilege variables, the more invisible you're going to be. And neurodivergence is a huge one. I mean, it takes up a huge swath of all of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to find other. I mean, for me, I think, I don't socialize a lot because I have connections that feel fine to me, but I probably wouldn't have realized how easy it is for me to get along with neurodivergent folks if I didn't have students that were, because the conversation is so natural. It's just a no-brainer. And I'm like, this is weird. How come I can do this with this person and not someone else? But the reality is, if you're at work or whatever, you're probably not going to be surrounded by those types of people. And so to find some places that you do, and really to two things. My wife and I both talk about this in our respective workplaces, to reaffirm to the other how much it sucks feeling invisible or not being seen, because the reality is you're not being seen as much. And the other piece to that, though, is it's not you. It's not something you're doing wrong, right? It's the situation. You're not a bad person, so you don't go to that despair, giving up and kind of shut down place, which is so easy to just default
Mhm.
to that and just feel awful all the time, right? But just know that like that's that scenario, and you have to be in it sometimes and then leave it and then go to places that are nurturing for you, knowing that you can't. That's what I finally got to with work. I'm like, I'm in my 60s now. I'm not going to create this massive change in there, and I'm just going to, do what I have to do, right? And that is a getting to the other side for me, is sort of acknowledging the reality of it. It sort of has the stages of grief. I mean, when you're diagnosed as neurodivergent, whichever form it is, that anger, denial, bargaining, depression, acceptance. It really is like that version of that because I've been pissed about that for a long time. I've been in denial about it. Like, no, I can do this. I can do neurotypical. And then there is that grieving piece. And then finally coming to where you say, I'm okay with who I am. And lucky to have someone else in your life that's loves you enough to be able to say you're awesome and it's their loss, and that's that acceptance place. But that you'll get a wave of that almost every time you move into a new group. You have to work through all those stages all over again as you're discovering who you really are. It's complex. It's really tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that it's okay just to start with yourself.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's okay to start with accepting who you are and meeting your
Mhm.
own needs. Like, how do
Right.
you nurture yourself first?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I know that that might sound lonely, but
Hmm.
that's the
Hmm.
starting place. In order,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you got to know that in order to know who you want to maybe spend time with,
That's right.
And so I think that's another kind of thought trap that my clients can
Hmm.
experience, which is like, why bother? Like, why
Yeah.
bother
Yeah.
in
That.
figuring out
Yeah.
what I need or how to nurture myself when I'm going to be alone anyway? And it's
Right.
like, well, with that attitude, no, I don't say that. But but it's like, what we got to start with
Yeah.
you fully understanding how to nurture yourself first.
Well, that's the
So,
thing is
yeah,
if you're not going to nurture yourself, then you're going to be extra, extra lonely because not only are other people not doing it, but you're not doing it for yourself.
yeah,
And
yeah,
this can even be things like you get to pick out what you want for dinner, or my wife has certain things she likes to watch. There's certain things that I like to watch, and then we have what overlaps. So things, and she'll even say, it's okay. We have this thing. I'll say, I'm interested in this thing. Do you want to watch it with me or should I watch it on my own? And oh, yeah, you can watch it on your own. So that sense of like, we are two different people. So we have a lot of commonality, but there are things that each of us likes specifically. And it's okay to pursue those things, like give that to yourself. It's okay to do that. And you
yeah.
should, right? Yeah,
Yep. I like
absolutely.
that, Dana. You're going to be extra lonely then. Then you're
Yeah.
extra lonely when you can't even give it to yourself,
If you,
but that's
exactly.
the
That's right.
starting place. And
That's right.
not that
Right.
I'm like into The Secret. Remember that whole book, like The Secret, where it was like,
Mm-mm.
what you put out, you get back?
Oh God,
It
it's a
was
little
like
more
this
complex than
energetic,
that. Yeah.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
like this energetic. Oh gosh, I don't mean to be diminishing to people who believe in this too, like clearly, but it was this
Yeah. Oh,
idea that
okay.
if I give out, you know, get whatever I give out, I get back. If I give out positivity, I get back
Mm.
positivity. If I give out, right, like this idea,
Oh,
like it's kind of that idea.
yeah.
But I do think, while I feel like that's very reductionistic and that there are so many things
Hmm.
that we cannot control in the world, no matter
Yeah.
how positive you are. Okay.
Right.
I mean,
Right. Yeah.
anyway, I
Oh
do
my
think that
God.
there's
Yeah.
something to when you can take care of yourself and you know what you need, and
Hmm.
you do then enforce or reinforce how you are treated or what kind of people
Hmm.
you are with. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
If it's clear that you don't even care what happens to you, people will just take advantage of you. You have to
Yeah.
be clear about what your needs are so you can have limits or whatever that is. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
For sure. Yeah.
So, this idea of invisibility was just so interesting to Dana and I because
Hmm.
I think it resonated
Yeah. Right
for
away.
us
Yeah.
right away of what we both observe, what Dana's kind of like felt in her own life. I would even say
Mhm.
like we see this in trauma too,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
when you've had to um when you've had to appease your environment, when you've had to
Oh,
keep your
yeah.
environment safe, and if your
Yeah.
environment happy in order for you to be safe, right?
Yeah.
You can have a
Yeah.
sense of invisibility as well. And for so many of our neurodivergent folks, there's a
Mhm.
crossover of complex trauma.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I
So,
heard a phrase recently that if you have eggshell parents is sort of what is being called out there, and I'm like, "Ooh, that's a good descriptor." where you're
Ooh,
constantly having to sort of take care of them rather than just being yourself. Yeah. Yeah. It's an exhausting way to
oof.
live. Yeah.
That's a really exhausting way to live.
Hmm.
That's a very
Hmm.
also fast way for you to be invisible, by the way.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, everyone, be good to you, be good to others, and we will catch you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.